What's happening, tabletop gamers? My name is LeunameGames. Welcome back to LeunameGames. Today we're going to learn how to play the 1 to 4 player pressure luck dice game Dungeon Roll by Chris Darden and published by Tasty Minstrel Games. In Dungeon Roll, the players are all heroes on a mission to collect as much experience as possible. And you're going to pull this off by rolling dice to form your party, heading into the dungeon with your hero and the party, rolling dice to fight the monsters or gain treasures, and go as far as you can, with your one question being, how far do I go? Let's get to the table and let's see what's in the box. To set up the game, make sure you remove everything from the treasure chest except for the treasure tokens. They can be identified by having a golden dragon on the back. Make sure those stay in the chest and are hidden from all the players. Give each player a reference card. Each of these cards basically gives you a summary of what all the different treasure tokens do on one side, and on the other side, a little summary of the various die faces and their actions. Then give each player a hero. You can either distribute these heroes randomly, or you can have each player select one to play with. I'm just going to go ahead and just shuffle this up randomly and then deal 3 out as the setup for a 3-player game. Any extras can be set aside. They will not be used for this game. Make sure when you set up your adventurer, you set it up with this wooden face facing up. They have 2 sides to them. The wooden face is called the novice. The metal face, this side here, is called the master. Each of these adventurers has 3 things you'll need to know. The first being the specialty. This is an ability that can be used as many times per delve into the dungeon as you wish. Then there's the ultimate ability. This is a one-time ability that you can use once per delve to some special effect, and once you use it, you cannot use it for the rest of the delve. And finally, there's the level up. If you can get 5 experience, then you are able to level up your adventurer from novice to the master level. When you level up your adventurer, you simply flip it over and it will increase the abilities of either your ultimate ability or your specialty. But since we're just setting up here, it is back to novice. Then set aside all of the experience tokens. They are double-sided so that you have plenty to choose from. Determine which player had most recently gone underground, and give that player the party dice. The player that has the party dice is considered the adventurer. Give the player to the left of the adventurer the dungeon dice and the dungeon level. They are considered the dungeon lord. Once you have done everything I have previously stated, you are ready to begin. On your turn, when it is your turn to act, you are considered the adventurer. You will then take all the party dice that you have and you will roll them to form a party. There are 6 different results that you can roll. You can roll champions, mages, thieves, scrolls, fighters, which I did not roll any of, and what is called clerics, represented by the little hammer right here. But for the sake of my example here, I'll just leave it back to what I rolled it. Then, if your hero was exhausted, you will be able to refresh it to its ready state. Now, in the first delve, you won't have to worry about that because your hero is already refreshed. The Dungeon Lord will then set the dungeon die level to 1, and then finally, they will roll 1 die to populate the dungeon. Then it's the adventurer's turn. Each adventurer's turn is comprised of 4 phases: the monster phase, the loot phase, the dragon phase, and the regroup phase. The monster phase only comes into effect if there were any monsters that are populating the dungeon. There are 4 types of monsters in the game: skeletons, oozes, goblins, and dragons. Anytime a dragon is rolled, send it off to the side somewhere for an area known as the Dragon's Lair. Any other monsters you rolled will have to be fought and cleared. For example, let's pretend I didn't actually roll this chest. Instead, I rolled a skeleton. In order for me to try and progress through the dungeon, I will have to defeat this skeleton. That is what the dice in your party are for. With the exception of scrolls, each companion is capable of defeating 1 monster. So in this example, I could easily use this mage to defeat this skeleton. To defeat a monster, Simply just choose the die that you want to use to defeat that monster and set it off to the right. This area is going to be known as the graveyard. Once you set a die over there, pick which monster you want to defeat and move it off to the side. Once all the monsters are defeated, the dungeon level is cleared. Once all of the monsters are cleared from the dungeon, you can then proceed to the second stage, the loot phase. Something to remember that's very important. During the monster phase, your character has specialties and ultimate abilities that you are able to use at any time during the monster phase. For example, the minstrel's specialty is I can use a thief as a mage. For example, I have 2 oozes here. That means I can use this thief as a mage to defeat these oozes. At the same time, I can also use the ultimate ability, the Bard's Song, to discard all of the dice in the dragon lair. Anytime you decide to use the ultimate ability, make sure you take your character and flip it onto his side to let everyone know that you've used it and can't use it again. The loot phase is your opportunity to open any chests and any potions that you have rolled while exploring the dungeon. Just like fighting monsters, each companion, with the exception of the scroll, is capable of opening 1 chest. However, if you have a thief with you or a champion, those 2 are capable of opening all the chests with a single die. For example, there are 2 chests here. I could send this thief to the graveyard and be able to open these 2 chests. Anytime you open a chest, you will then take the treasure chest box, shake it around a little bit, then open the chest, reach in without looking, and you will pull out a treasure token. You will then set it into your little supply area there, and that will become yours. Any treasures that you've obtained can be used later on in the game, or you can keep them till the end of the game for extra points. In this example, after drawing 2 tokens out of the box, I got a dagger and a ring. The other thing you can do in the loot phase, if you want to, is to drink potions. This allows you to use any die you want, including the scrolls. Take that die to drink all the potions, and for each potion that you drink, you get to bring 1 die back from the graveyard on as a face of your choice. For example, I used the scroll to drink this potion, and I decide to bring back this scroll as a cleric. If you don't want to open a chest or drink the potions, you can choose to ignore them and set them aside. After the loot phase, then there is the dragon phase. If there are 2 or less dragon faces in the dragon's lair, like I have here, you can ignore the dragon phase of your turn. If there are 3 or more dragons in the dragon's lair, the dragon will then come out to face you. Simply just take those dice and place them in front of you. You will then have 2 options. Either you will spend 3 of your companions to defeat the dragon, or you will flee the dungeon. If you decide to spend 3 companions to defeat the dragon, like I just did here, the dragon is defeated. You will gain a bonus experience point that you get to keep, and you get to draw a token from the treasure chest. Just like before, reaching in without looking and pulling one from the chest. If you are forced to confront the dragon and you do not have enough dice to defeat it, you are then forced to flee the dungeon, and any experience that you might have gained from that dungeon delve are lost. You can also be forced to flee the dungeon if you do not have enough dice to defeat all of the monsters that are in the level. Now before I go any further, let me explain what all of the companions and the treasure tokens actually do. Like I said, every companion, with the exception of the scroll, can defeat a single monster. However, some companions are better at fighting certain monsters than others. This scroll cannot be used to fight anything. However, you can use the scroll during the monster phase to reroll any number of dungeon dice and party dice that have not been used. You can take any amount of them and reroll them hoping for a more favorable outcome. The thief, like I mentioned, can open any number of chests in the dungeon. Most of the other companions can only open one chest per die. The mages can defeat any number of oozes that are in the dungeon. Most of the other companions can only defeat one per die. The cleric can defeat any number of skeletons that are in the dungeon. And the fighter can defeat any number of goblins. This yellow side of the die is called a champion. The champion is a special die, as it can defeat any amount of a single monster type that is in the dungeon level, and it can open any amount of chests that are in the level. Keep in mind, however, a single champion can only do one or the other. It cannot defeat all the monsters and open all the chests. What do all the treasure tokens do? Some of these can act as companions. The thieves' tools, which I mistakenly called a dagger, can act as another thief die. A vorpal sword can act as if it is a fighter. A scroll can act as if it is a scroll. This potion can allow you to bring one die back from your graveyard, and once again has any face of the die of your choice. This talisman will act as if you had a cleric with you. And this scepter of power can act as if you have a mage. Next is the dragon meat. When you use the dragon meat, all of the remaining dice that are in the dungeon will turn into dragons. Once again, placing all of them into the dragon's lair. The town portal allows you to collect the amount of experience points equal to the current dungeon level and leave the dungeon even if you don't have enough companions to clear the level. However, if you keep the town portal to the end of the game without using it, it is worth 2 points. The ring of invisibility will allow you to clear all of the dragon dice from the dragon's lair. However, this does not count as defeating the dragon, and so you will not gain a bonus experience point or a treasure token. Finally, there are the dragon scales. Each individual dragon scale on its own is worth a single point. However, if you have a pair of dragon scales at the end of the game, they are worth an additional 2 points each. So basically, a pair of dragon scales will be worth 4 extra points at the end of the game. After the dragon phase, assuming you are still in the dungeon, comes the regroup phase. When you reach the regroup phase, you have 3 options. First, you can choose to retire to the tavern. If you do that, you will then collect the amount of experience points shown on the dungeon die. In this case, it's 1. Place it near your character, and your turn is over. If you reach the regroup phase and the dungeon die is at level 10, you collect 10 experience points and you must leave the dungeon. And the third option is to seek glory. Basically, you decide to keep going. If you choose this, have the dungeon lord move the die up 1 level and then roll the amount of dungeon dice shown on that level. In this case, it is 2, so I will roll 2 dungeon dice. Hey, that's a nice roll. You will keep fighting monsters and potentially the dragon and using your companions until you decide to stop and take the level of experience that you are currently at, or you are forced to flee the dungeon. Anytime you are forced to flee the dungeon, you collect no experience points at all. Anytime you choose to stop, you collect the amount of experience points currently shown on the dungeon die. When your turn is over, for whatever reason, you will then pass the party dice to the player on your left. They become the new adventurer, and that player passes all of the dungeon dice and the dungeon level to the player on his left, and he becomes the new dungeon lord. That player, who is now the new adventurer, will then take his turn. Once his turn is done, again, take all of the party dice, pass them to his left. All the dungeon dice and the dungeon level die get passed to their left. Also, after your turn is over, if you manage to reach the amount of experience points needed to level up your character, you can then simply take your character and flip it over to its master's side. But keep the experience you have in front of you. After each player has delved into the dungeon 3 times, you will then count your total amount of experience plus an extra experience point for each unused treasure token that was kept at the end of the game, and whoever has the most experience is the winner. In the case of a tie, the tied player with the least amount of treasure tokens wins. If there is still a tie, the tied players share the win. And that is everything you need to know in order to play Dungeon Roll. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to learn my thoughts on Dungeon Roll, or if you want to learn how to play more games, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you all as always so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.